one thing that I want to ask about, continuing on this theme of the breath, you mentioned that you consider it this higher power, this connection to source, and not everyone may feel that way. And I think that in conversations like this, I'm always struck by the way that this truth feels deeply spiritual to me. But also, there is so much wisdom here for those that may consider themselves atheists, who may not um, want to think of this in a spiritual sense, or even those that have belief systems that are a little bit more strict or dogmatic, that you can still layer this into that experience as well. This fits beautifully in any sort of faith system too. How do you describe this connection to your higher power and I suppose bridge the gap between this spectrum of faith? Because I think everyone has faith, even atheists. It's a faith in something that you cannot see. You have faith that there is nothing, right? So in this spectrum of faith, where you consider breath to be a higher power, how do you describe this in these different contexts?
Hmm. Well, first of all, I love how you describe faith. Even for the atheist, there's faith. I think that's so true. And to me, it feels like almost like it's the answer to the question. If we're willing that we have faith, even if it's only that there will be another day tomorrow, then we know we have faith. And then it becomes a question of, well, how do I get acquainted with that faith, and how can I enjoy it? How can I utilize it? How can I apply it? Where does it work that I might not be aware that it's possible? That's a pretty deep inquiry, I think. And my own life has been one of some serious disasters. I've been through a lot of self-hatred. I don't know if all of us have been able to reconcile with the inner critic that we have, but I've had an inner critic that was absolutely ruthless and with sometimes very good reason. I've really made some mistakes in my life. I've hurt people because I was hurt and I didn't resolve my own hurt. And that's what I see that terrifies me in the world today, is this keeps on getting played out. I don't believe we're meant to live that way. I don't believe that we're meant to be a part of this shit show that is going on out there. But I think the sad truth is that a lot of us are, unconsciously, unwillingly perhaps, but also unconsciously. I think that something happens when we become activated and we enter into argument with some of the horrors that occur, and we don't realize that we're actually unconsciously encouraging the conversation to take more form, to get more volume and more breadth and more outreach. And so what is this, as the Buddhists might say, what does the third way look like? What, if there was an alternative, what might that be? Because in the earthly realm, it's not very apparent. It's not very clear. So that makes me wonder, well, what else might be there? And a question might be, how many times have you seen a potentially escalating situation be soothed in your own being? That someone says something and you, oh God, actually, maybe I don't need to perpetuate this approach. Maybe there is another way. And I think that the times that, of course, it's much more often that we know we're going to say the wrong thing, right? But we feel self-righteous and we've got to say it anyway. And it doesn't matter how much damage it does. And I know it's going to screw things up. And oops, I said it. And oh my God, now it didn't work at all. Things have just got worse. I mean, how many times in our life do we do that? And I think that in itself has a momentum and a habitual quality to it as well, an addictive quality to it. We justify our existence by our opinion. But actually, if we look at the world, opinions have become so enabled and so amplified in their importance that when you look at things like the stock market, we're trading money on people's opinions as to what will happen with the price of salt in 10 years' time. So an opinion all of a sudden has generated into something materially very significant. People are going bankrupt and making billions based on that opinion. And that's just one opinion. And then we think that our opinion, we get confused that the strength of our opinion is the strength of our purpose. And all of a sudden we're in the wrong conversation. We're not actually helping. We are the problem. So what is it that will take? What is it that's going to be the cold water in our face that is, as humanity, is going to make us, shock us into understanding that there's something else available to us? And if I don't believe in a higher power, if I cast aside a higher power, how can I expect it to help me? So isn't it worth the risk to explore what a higher power might be? And I don't mean by a belief system. I don't mean by becoming adherent to someone else's belief system. I've been called a guru by many people, but I don't want that. I don't want to make any claim on someone's need to believe in something to feel better about themselves. I don't believe that's appropriate. I want people to believe in themselves and to feel better about themselves that way. And so to me, the power of the breath, and especially this is where the conscious connected breath becomes important. I've seen atheists breathe a conscious connected breath. I've seen people who are not just non-believers, but antagonistic to the practice. I've seen people that are addictive. I've seen people that are emotionally closed. I've seen control freaks. I've seen for anything from anarchists to narcissists who've used the conscious connected breath, and I've seen them transformed in half an hour. I've seen people who are in the cage of a relationship and haven't made love in years become lovers again and become in renewed relationship in 30 minutes. I've seen what people would call miracles. I've seen people who could not physically see become sighted in an hour and a half. I've seen people with chronic pains and illnesses, including stage 4 cancer, that disappears in minutes. This we relegate to the miraculous. But I've discovered that the miraculous is actually happening all the time. It's not some remote strike of lightning that chose me and changed my life. The miraculous is. And therefore, it's up to us to pay attention to it. And once we cultivate the appropriate quality of attention, then that's something else that's waiting to happen can happen. And this has been now proven with quantum science. There are some quantum physics. There are some things that will not occur unless you are present. So what does that mean? There's a lot of material we can work with, but it's not about knowledge. It's not about intellect. It's not even about emotion, even though emotion can be the doorway through which we can discover the other, something that we don't know. It's a quality of attention that we can give. And that's what I call spirituality, because it's a challenge. And attention, for someone who's been to Florence, like you have, and you've studied the language, it comes from the word attendere. And that means to wait. It means to wait, an active, forceful engaged, powerful waiting. And unless I wait in that way, unconditionally, without expectation or need, that something won't happen, or it'll happen a different way. For us in our human experience, the waiting means I'd better be patient, right? In our human language, that's what it means. But there is an active waiting, a forceful, almost a fierce waiting that we can do. And I'm going to give an example. If you're ever overwhelmed in life, wouldn't it be reassuring to consider that there's something waiting to happen? There's going to be something next, no matter how miserable or grim or depressed we might feel. But part of the problem of being depressed is we become habitually depressed and we lose that ability to notice. We just chronically expect the same thing to repeat. But intellectually, we must be able to appreciate that something next is going to happen. What if we can be co-creative in that experience? And my teaching that I've received through my life is that if we are willing to wait and give a pure quality of attention that's not conditioned by expectation or need or entitlement, but just an open waiting, that we will notice what that something is. And then we can select it as an option. And then we're engaged in choosing again. We've regained our agency. We're moving out of our victim role. It's a bit like if you're looking into the fog and you know that there's somebody walking towards you, and you're looking in the fog, but you can't see anything but fog. But what your mind is doing is it's looking for the form. Oh, was that it? Oh, no, maybe no, it wasn't. No, was that? Oh my God, there it is. And there's that moment that it comes into awareness that is magical, right? I mean, it's like, when you think about it, that's such a wonderful moment, like recognition, connection, everything falls into place. But when you talked about earlier on about, or was it something's over but it hasn't yet begun, when you use that phrase from the book that I now can't remember, but that's a very important moment to be in and to really inhabit, because that's where difference and change and quantum possibility exists. So that waiting that we have, if we can let that feeling of like, I want this to happen, come, but also let it pass. Don't be attached to it and come back to that kind of fierce focus. Then we've got our microscope, tuned, and we've got it focused, and we will notice something minute that we might not have noticed before, and that can change everything.